kind of late for what I normally do. I normally start at 9, but I had fabric coming in today and it didn't get here till about 8 o'clock. So it was getting fabric cut and interfaced and all that to do a live tonight. So I'm going to be working on the Stow and Go bag just to show you what a normal Stow and Go bag looks like. This is actually mine. Let's zip it back up. I use it for, it's great for like cross stitchers, knitters, crochet, any small craft. I have a couple that my daughter has for her crayons and the like. Uh, she has one for Barbie stuff. Basically, anything you want. I actually have one that I have like the small little Sega system in, and one for my small little Nintendo, just so they don't get the dust in them in between using them. So this is my prototype when I first made this pattern. And this has handles. However, I'm not going to be doing the one with handles tonight. I'm just going to be making a very simplified version. And this is the one I make pretty regularly for my cross stitch shops that I sell to and everything. So sorry for the delayed. But so this is actually one of my patterns, Turtle Designs. If you go to sewingturtleboutique.net, I have all my patterns listed there. This is one of those that you can purchase. And we are just going to be putting one together real quick. This is a very easy pattern. Once you get it cut out, I can make one in about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's not a long pattern, but it is one that's a lot of fun. And I'm not kidding when I said I've made thousands of these for orders and things. I actually have an order right now for about 75 of them for one particular customer, and I have for about 10 for another customer. So a lot of my customers are cross stitch shops. So these are great for craft items. So if we were going to do that, I have my fabric, and of course, I'm not going to share pattern measurements, but I have my exterior fabric, which is a really cool Hawaiian print. Has parrots, lots of different flowers, including birds of paradise, which is actually uh, what the person who ordered this, they ordered it for this fabric. And I actually designed a zipper pull to match the fabric. So if you want to see how that goes together, it matches really well. And so we have a front back of the exterior, and we have a front and back of the lining. Then we have our zipper. This is a longer zipper than I have to have, but sometimes I make a larger version of this bag, and this is what I order for that. So I always order this length. This particular is a 22-inch zipper. For the bag that I'm making right now, you really only need about a 16-inch, but 16 to 18-inch, depending on how wide you're making your bag. So we're going to get started. So the big thing here is we take the front, which is the shorter of the two sides, and we are going to put your zipper right sides together with the front lining, and we're going to pin that together. I apologize for being later than I normally am. Like I said, I was cutting out fabric and everything. Like I said, this is a pretty simple sew. Um, there are, I've used these for tons of things. I own about 4 of these that I keep in regular rotation in just my stuff. And I've made one for my daughter's Barbies. I've made one for her crayons because I was tired of having crayons and color pencils everywhere. So I made it out of that for that reason. But you don't have to have a zipper pull. I like to have zipper pulls that match with the fabrics I have. So, like I said, I designed that in my embroidery software. It's a bird of paradise flower. And I usually try to do that with any of the fabrics. Now, the one I showed you before, you can just use custom pulls. Like this one has a little hedgehog. If you notice, it matches the fabric as well. I do try to still theme if I'm using a custom pull or if I'm making my own. I still try to theme it because it just classes it up that much more. Welcome. So we are pinning the front and exterior. Basically, you're making a sandwich of your zipper in between your lining and exterior. And just to show you after I get this pinned, there is, this bag will feel thicker. Okay, so if you look, you can see that I have put fusible fleece here. So this actually gives the bag a decent amount of heft. You could make it with foam if you really wanted a really cushioned bag. But so now we have this, we're going to go and take it and sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'll go ahead and turn y'all to the machine. So I said this is a pretty simple bag pattern. Like I said, you can purchase a copy of the pattern yourself at my website, which is linked in the description. I do have other patterns available there as well. So we're just sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance to connect our lining to our exterior and sandwiching the zipper in between. Uh, Trim my threads. Okay, I'm going to move y'all back here. So what we're doing, so it is now sewn. You see it's sewn with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to go take this over to the iron and press this so that we can come back and attach our other side. So give me just a second. You'll still be able to kind of see me over there at my ironing board, but apologize that I'm not the most visible while I'm ironing. But we are going to press this, wake up the iron for a second, and apparently pull out a random thread that popped through. But I said my pattern has all the things you will need. You can make this out of vinyl, even. I have made one out of vinyl. I have made one out of just canvas or waterproof canvas as well. I've made one out of clear vinyl. That's always fun when you make these out of clear vinyl because you can see everything inside of them. I don't know where I've got mine. I think my daughter ran off with my clear one. So if you see, we pressed it, that really pretty purple inside, and we're going to move it to the machine. We're going to top stitch it. And so when I top stitch, I stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. That just helps hold everything in place. And the reason we press it is that it helps train those seams so that your fabric doesn't get bunched up at the zipper. And we'll get that. Now, this is the time that if you wanted to personalize your bag, you can add a large tag or a small tag. I add, I have tags with my business logo on them that I put. Of course, I didn't think to have this pre cut out before I came on here. Apologize for that. So, this is my tag that actually folds in half so you see the logo from both sides. But you can use like a cork tag, like in the case of this one. I actually sewed just a cork tag on the front right there. But for the most part, when I'm doing these for and I do a lot of these wholesale. When I do that, I'd use the fabric tags instead. And so I just put it where it's going to be a quarter of an inch in from the seam and sew it down. So this is a good way. You can do it either way for tags, for personalization. So this is what my front of my bag looks right now. That tag will actually stand out once you're done. So now we'll pin our other side. And if anybody's wondered, I have trimmed this down to a half inch because I'm using a half inch seam allowance. So I've trimmed this down to a half an inch so that it is inside my seam allowance. That's the edge of the zipper. Like I said, I do use zipper tape. That other one does use custom zipper tape, but this is when I do these on a bigger scale, I use the number 3 zippers, which are just your regular pants, skirt zippers, dress zippers. And usually when I buy 'em, I'm buying them in bulk. So I buy like the 22-inch because sometimes I do make larger bags that are like 12 and a half by 19 because some people like to have them for their Q snap frames. And some Q snap frames are 11 by 17. So I don't make those as often, but we are pinning this and I'm going to pin this all the way across. I just kind of hold it in place and pin. So a big thing with this, I pull the zipper up to level with the lining, then I pull my exterior up to the level of the zipper, making me a nice little zipper sandwich here. And we're going to get another pin. And pin this. And when you pin it, it should be the same length as your exterior fabric, as you can see. But if I'm holding it correctly, so you know you've pinned it correctly because the length and the height are different. Welcome. Hope you enjoy my tutorial. So we're just going to take this into the machine and we're going to sew it with a quarter-inch seam allowance yet again. Take y'all back to the machine. Like I said, this is a fun little pattern. It's great to use up fabric and stuff that you don't need tons of. You can actually use 2 fat quarters to make one of these, and that's all you need. Well, 2 fat quarters of each fabric. Let's put it that way. But I will say, if you use an actual half yard of each, you can get 2 bags because you can cut across them. So we have sewn it. So I'm going to go to the ironing board yet again and press this side. I'll be right back. Running into, haven't moved my heater into storage yet. It's unplugged and everything, but it's still there. So I'm getting this started. Okay. And I actually press from the back and then I press the front and then I press the back one last time. And that's just basically to make sure that seam plays nice. So sometimes those seams will not play nice. So this is what it looks like front and back. And so I'm going to top stitch this side and then we'll move to finishing the bag. Okay, so there's not a lot to this pattern. It's more the finishing that's a little more interesting. So sorry. So we're going to yet again top stitch at a eighth of an inch from the edge of the fabric. If you have any questions for him, feel free to ask. And so at this point, I always unzip and rezip just to make sure that none of my lining has gotten caught in the seam. That's a good indicator. So now at this point, if you notice, I have now put my zipper inside the edge. That's because we're going to pin it together. After we do one step, my next step is actually basting the lining to the exterior. And I do this from the lining side. So when I baste it together, I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this, you could just pin it, but I have found fabric likes to shift. So I have always gotten to the point that I baste everything first, then I pin it, and then it sews so much easier. So we are just basting our fabrics together. Now, that's not the case for every bag, but for this type of bag, because you're dealing with such a big expanse of fabric, it's better to baste it in place. So I am basting it in place. And basically, this is the reason why you want to make sure your zipper's on the inside of your exterior seam, because otherwise you're not going to be able to zip your zipper open and close afterwards. Because basically, we just close that zipper with our basting. So we did one side, and I'm going to go do. We don't need to do this on all three sides. You just need to do this on your two long sides. At this point, this is just to keep it in place while we pin it. And I said, now this is one place when I'm doing multiple of these, I will actually chain them and then pin them. So my husband knows when I say I've got to stitch, baste them, pin them, and stitch them where I'm at in my process because I always do them in that order. Well, at least I know I won't run out of a bobbin while I'm talking to y'all. So, all right. So this one is basted. So everything's kind of together. It's a nice little sandwich. You can see the fusible fleece in between those two layers. So now what we're going to do is we are actually going to open this zipper because you want to be able to turn it after you're done. So we are going to open this zipper, not necessarily all the way, but like 3/4 of the way. And we are going to pin it together. Now, after we're done with this part, then what I usually do is I will take it and serge it. The seams. I'll show you what I mean. I will actually turn my other one wrong side out so that y'all can see because I'm not set up to video over at my serger, but I'll show you what I do. Okay, so we have it pinned. So you can see there's a little overlap Welcome. So we have it and we're going to pin and we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew 3 sides around. Okay. Move y'all back to the machine. Okay. So do that. Let's get me in the right spot for a 1/2 inch. Always make sure you are back stitching. And so when I'm going over my zipper, I actually reverse stitch over it just to give it a little strength there. And we're just going down our seam. Now, you will see me, I have this big long tail for a zipper. I will actually cut this off so it's now even. Okay, and we are getting this done. You can tell how often I've done this if I can kind of eyeball where a 1/2 inch is. And I just take out my pins before I get to them most of the time. Sometimes I forget and I have broken a needle or two going over that. So I try to remember to take that off. Okay. So just to show y'all, this, I told y'all, behind the stopper, I trimmed it to 1/2 inch. And the reason being, if you see where the stitching is, it's right behind the stopper. And then, like I said, I do a stitch and then a reverse stitch over again at the other side. And that gives me really good points for the bag for stopping the zipper at both ends. So at this point, I normally take it to my serger. And you can also use binding too if you really wanted to. I've done it before. But just to show you, I'll flip my other one out so I can show you what I do with the serger. Okay. It gives us this nice, clean, finished seam. And so some people say, well, you have serger tails. Well, I actually take and thread the serger tails down into the seam. So if you can see, that gives you a nice, clean finish on the inside. And so I go all 3 sides serging. So that's the way I finish it. And I will do the same with this one, but I will take it in my serger. It'll trim off the excess of the seam. But just to show you what this looks like, I will turn it right side out for you. When you do this, make sure you poke out your corners. I usually poke out the corners at the top first, and then I go down at the bottom. And we put that together and we zip it closed. And I will put my little zipper pull on it. And voila, we have a finished bag. This is the Stow and Go. And if you can see, there's the bird of paradise. And there are birds of paradise on this. This was what was requested by my customer. So we have the tag. That is a completed Stow and Go bag, simplified without the handle. You can do it with the handle as well. The handle, the instructions are in there, and so this one is mine with the handle. Just poke it back out. And it actually has two handles, not a handle, but two handles. And it has it on the front and back. And my pattern covers how to do the handles, but for this particular order, they do not want the handles. They just want it like this because they use it for cross stitch project bags. So a lot of times they will put these inside of another bag, each individual project inside of it. Thank you for joining me tonight. Like I said, this was a pretty quick one for tonight. I will not be on live next week, but in 2 weeks I will be back on live, and I will hope to see y'all then next in 2 weeks from today at 9 o'clock Eastern. Thank y'all for joining me.